Live Live Podcast with your host, Jose Arqueta.
And we're back. So today I'm solo cholo.
Podcast.
I don't have a guest today. I apologize ahead of time. If you guys hear my voice a little bit mormado, tengo las alergias al 100 ahorita. And I feel like I'm not the only one. I think everybody else is going through that season. It's that season already when everybody goes through allergy season. Pero goddamn, a mí me pega tan feo esa madre. But anyways, this episode is brought to you by Revive Beauty Bar Aesthetics. So check out that commercial. Hit her up. Check out her website. Make an appointment so you could look beautiful. Anything you need, she got you covered. From IVs to micro needling to if you want to have those lips like, ¿cómo se llama? Las Kardashians. She's your go-to person, right? So let her know that Live Life Podcast sent you.
Welcome to Revive Beauty Bar, where beauty meets wellness in the heart of downtown Salinas. Our expert team is dedicated to providing personalized care tailored to your beauty needs. Let's explore how we can enhance your natural beauty. I am here to assess your concerns and recommend the perfect solution. From rejuvenating Botox and RHA treatments to revitalizing skin resurfacing, we have it all to help you glow with confidence. In addition, our IV hydration and vitamin therapy ensures you feel your best from the inside out. Experience the art of medical aesthetics at Revive Beauty Bar. Book your appointment today and discover a healthier, more beautiful you.
So we're back. So today I'm just going to talk to you guys briefly about reminiscing the good old days, right? When I say the good old days is growing up in the 80s and 90s. You know, to me, those days were the best, you know, my opinion, right? You know, every generation is different. But just reminiscing the good old days. And eventually later on, I'll have a couple guests where we could all talk and share experiences as far as what do we remember in those good old days. You know, for example, do you guys remember Mervin's, right? I remember my mom used to take me there to go shop for those husky pants, those hush cards. No, me acuerdo cómo se llaman. Pero I remember my mom no sale ahí de Mervin, so that's one thing that, you know, I could, you know, talk about with some friends, you know, that are similar to my age and we can reminisce. But for right now, you know, we're going to talk about my memories, you know, what I remember, and maybe you guys could relate to it. So, you know, growing up in Salinas. But before I move forward, I know a lot of people have a closed-minded mentality about Salinas. You know, Salinas 831. I love Salinas. But anywhere you go, it's a beautiful city, a beautiful state. You know, if you're in Texas, New York, whatever, right? But I love Salinas. So my memories that I remember growing up is one of the things that is being able to ride your bike freely. You know, I grew up in La Costa Plaza, and it was pretty heavy duty there. There was a lot of gang members and, you know, a lot of stuff going on. But being able to ride my bike and hang out with my friends and remembering the most common games that we used to play, like follow the leader, you know, like you'll be like 10 guys rolling deep, you know, not like those guys, not like those kids que ahora andan ahí in the middle of the street or downtown doing wheelies, nothing like that. I'm talking about just regular kids having fun, following the leader and going through all those little mazes, you know, going up hills and you know, just having a good time. You know, that's one of my biggest memories is, you know, being able to do that. You know, being able to go to Cardboard Hill. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it was like a hill where we all used to go grab a cardboard and go slide down, you know. And knowing that when was the perfect time to go home, right? So if it was getting dark at night, you already knew you had to go home. So well, that's one of my favorite memories growing up, that you didn't have the time, you know, even if you had to watch and even know how to read it or tell time at that young age, the fact that you knew that once that pole, ¿cómo se llama esa pinche pole? Ese pole del street se prendía, it was time to go home, right? From playing marbles, from playing those little pots. Do you guys remember those pots? Did you guys slammer? You use a slammer, heavy slammer? I remember I used to go to La Mas, buy those things, or go to La Mas, buy baseball cards or football cards. I remember collecting football cards and, buying a book and seeing how much was the value and collecting comic books, all that stuff, it's just it's a good memories. I remember one time my dad bought me a bike that had like a little shifter here, and I thought I was the shit. The bike was gold, and it had a shifter right here. It had so many speeds. Instead of having the shifters right here, it had it right here. So I remember like I felt like I was driving like a stick shift back in the day. But then it got stolen. Of course, I lived in La Costa Plaza, so it got stolen. And I never saw my gold bike ever again. But it was weird being that one kid with the gold bike. I don't know what was my dad's thought process, but hey, at least I had a bike, right? And it was not the bike that I wanted. I think I wanted a GT bike with those star rims. And then obviously, the evolution comes in where everybody starts getting the lowrider bikes and all that stuff. But yeah, that's one of my memories. I remember drinking out of the water faucet. I mean, out of the hose. Out of the hose. I remember that shit. You're thirsty. Ibas ahí al carport because we used to live in La Costa Plaza. So you go to the carport with your buddies because you were close there. Y abríamos la llave y, God, dude, that water sabía tan sabrosa. I think it was like the best water ever. Especially when it was hot. It was like the best water ever. And now you try drinking out of that, dude. I remember my mom used to heat up water to hacer unas sopas instantáneas, some instant, those little soups. And they were so good. Now you do it and it just tastes so different. Even if you use water to do coffee out of the faucet, it's just the taste is so different. At work, that's what they do. And at work, I have my own coffee, Keurig, or whatever you call it, and a gallon of water, purified water that I use. And now I make my own coffee because it's just the water tastes so weird now. But back in the days, man, it was a whole different thing. Water was so good out of the hose. And también los Flintstones vitamins. I don't know if you guys ever took Flintstone vitamins. My mom, that's all he gave me, Flintstone vitamins, And just remembering those days growing up, it was just a beauty, it was something beautiful that I got to experience. And obviously, as you get older, you start seeing other things. For example, who remembers MTV? Shit, I loved MTV, especially watching those rap videos with the chicks, showing little bikinis with the little thongs in there. You're like, ahí todo morrillo, all hyped up watching those rap videos from Dr. Dre. I remember me and my buddy used to get together and just sit down at the living room and watch those videos. And we'll be all excited, Oh my God, the things that we would get excited when we were young, watching those videos, or Rock, Guns N' Roses, or Aerosmith will come out with some chicks, some sexy chicks, and all those good old days, right? And then I remember when the era from cassettes phased out to CDs. Yeah, that was crazy. I remember everybody had their CD players. I remember my freshman year going to high school in Alvarez. I had my own CD Sony Walkman, anti-shock, because it wouldn't allow to skip the CD. And, put it in my backpack with the wire all over here with my headphones and just walk to school, right? And listen to Metallica or whatever CD you had at that time. But it was just the evolution of entertainment changed a lot. You got the 80s, you got disco era from rock to 200 hip-hops. And it's just evolution changed a lot as the years went by, as well as renting movies. Who remembers Blockbuster? ¿Cómo se llama el otro? ComSource Video Rental, right there off of Laurel. That was a pretty cool one. You had to get a membership, to rent movies. That was pretty cool. Every Friday night, I remember me, my mom, my dad will go rent some movies. They'll rent the Spanish movies con Mario Armada. Con los verduleros, those type of movies, those like 1 day rental and then return the next day before 5 o'clock, or else you'll get charged a certain fee, and then obviously Blockbuster took that industry, and they created memberships where you had like a 5 day, you get to hold on to the movie. Video games, you can rent video games too. If your parents couldn't afford a game, you could just rent a freaking game for 5 days, and hopefully you pass it in 5 days. And then Hollywood Video came too. That was another pretty cool one.
Engaging video content can drive your business forward. We specialize in creating professional corporate videos and commercials tailored to your brand. Collaborative ideas help display your vision. Let's elevate your business today. LC1 Productions, crafting stories that matter.
But then Blockbuster was gone. You know, I remember till the last day that Blockbuster was open on South Main by Food Max. I still remember that. That was in 2012, 2013 that he closed. But anyways, I like going there every Friday night to rent a movie. Buy popcorn, candy, go home and rent a movie. And you know, watch a movie. You know, that was the thing, you know. Nowadays it's like you go through Netflix, you know, you're flipping Netflix, trying to see which movie you're gonna watch, and it's a whole different evolution, man. You know, but I remember that those days were a lot better, in my opinion, because you got to interact with your family, you got to interact with your brothers, you got to interact with all your friends. And nowadays, you know, everybody's doing this, you know, and it's just a whole different era. And I feel blessed that I was able to enjoy those moments, you know. And sometimes we take those moments for granted, you know. I remember sometimes I'll be like, man, I can't wait to, you know, be this old or be 21, and now it's like, man, I wish I could go back and enjoy those moments even more, you know. It's different, you know. Go to the movies with your friends, that was pretty cool. With $20, you two of your friends go to the movies, buy popcorn, hot dogs, and still had money left over to play video games. Now, fuck, $20. It's one ticket and a soda, if anything, you know. It's just, things are so expensive now, you know. And it's just, again, the good old days, right? The good old days of going to the movies with your friends, being able to see a movie together, walk out of that excitement. It was like, all right, guys, where we're gonna go eat? Or you know, the thing was for us is go to the movies at the mall. From the mall, go to at the mall, right? Century 21, Century 14 theaters, whatever it is. And then from there, play video games there. But then at the mall, they had a big arcade game, so we'll go there and play arcade, you know, and then walk around the mall like cool guys, you know, and then take the bus and go home, or have our parents come pick us up. You know, that was a thing back in the day. You know, it was something so beautiful. Something so beautiful that is always going to be in my heart and my mind, you know, to rejoice those moments, you know, and just have fun, you know, even as a kid, playing with marbles, playing with your toys. You know, I remember G.I. Joe toys. I remember all these toys, you know, that now are collectibles, you know, and it's just beautiful remembering, going back in time and reminiscing those good old days, you know. You know, as far as music, obviously in the 80s, you had Michael Jackson, Madonna, you had, you know, Guns N' Roses, Run DMC, you had, you know, Prince, you had all that, and, you know, and en español, ¿qué tenías? La Industria del Amor, Los Tigres del Norte, ¿qué más tenías en Spanish? Zona Dinamita, ¿quién más? Temerarios. Temerarios were the shits back in the day, you know? Fuck. Yo me acuerdo cuando, Temerarios van a presentar bueno, en el condado de Watsonville, en la terreno de no sé qué. Pero allá iban todas mis tías, todas bien pintadas con el copete, con Aquanet, you know? Todas bien cool girls, con sus botas así, disco or 80 boots all the way to the knees. You know, long hair all the way to the back of the butt, y big old copete, and todas bien pintadas, and it's just like, man, you know. Y luego La Quebradita came over, and that made a big impact, you know. I remember going to La Pulga San Jose, and then my dad bought me like a little thing, un pañuelo con leather que decía de dónde eres, you know, de Guanajuato, you know, it had like a chick in there. And then the thing was, you gotta clip it on your belt, and then you walk around it all cool guy. And whoever had the baddest one, que tenía más barbitas, que brillaba, you were like the cooler guy. You know what I mean? And then I remember the chaleco started coming out during that quebradita era, where everybody had a chaleco with their city where they were born from. You know, Guanajuato, Jalisco, and it's just like, no manches, you know. That was a thing. You know, I remember Mariano's was always cracking, you know. I heard my mom would be like, hey, estás acá con tu tía, me and your dad going to Mariano's a bailar, que va a estar fucking Banda Vallarta shows. Like, ah, cabrón. But as a kid, you don't know, you're like, all right, go for it. But growing up that, Sábado Gigante, that was another one. That was pretty cool, watching a Chacal. I think that was my favorite one, trying to see all those people try to sing, Now you get to see, now I know how they felt when I sing karaoke at my buddy's mom's house. But it's just, Sábado Gigante, Cristina, the show with Cristina. It was like the opera, but I'm not going to say she was Mexican. I think she was Cubana or Puerto Rican. I don't know. But Cristina and all those shows, And then, boom, the 90s. I think I throw in a little bit of 90s in there, but, 90s, the music, changed a little bit. You had Biggie, Tupac, you had Nirvana, you had Britney Spears, you had NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, early Eminem stages before the 2000s. But it was something so beautiful, beautiful, beautiful times. Even in high school, even in junior high to high school, there was no cell phones at that point yet. There was pagers only. Who remembers the pagers, dude? That's another one. The pagers was a thing back in the day. And then it became more if you had a color pager. And even more if you had a pager that you could see the little relay or the little thingies inside the thing. It was like a see-through. Then you were the shits, the pagers. And it's just like, even if you had a pager that connected to your pager and then had like a little chain that connected to your wallet. Oh my God, dude. Shit. You get a page and then you go to the payphone and call the girl. Hey, what's up? I got your page. Oh my God, I remember those days. Son of a bitch. Or cuando like the people figure out how to send you like words on the page, like emergency or like I miss you, or it got so crazy those times, Fashion, going back to fashion, obviously when La Quebradita hit, before La Quebradita, it was the 80s, all the girls with their, copetes, the guys. It was a whole different thing, I think the guys and the girls didn't dress to impress. They just dressed to be themselves. They just dressed because it was a thing going on. It's like at the 80s, everybody was wearing neon colors, with the shirts open, those disco fucking fevers and shit. But as the years went going, the generations kept changing, the dress code kept changing. I remember there was a point when everybody would be wearing Looney Tunes shirts. Who remembers that shit? Looney Tunes shirts. Oh, man, man, los bells que tenían tu letter, but God forbid that you had one of those because then you were labeled as gangster, the ones that people will fold it, and then the longer you had it, the cooler you were, I guess, Ben Davis, Dickies are still around, but back then it was a big old thing. Yeah, it's just fashion was a whole different thing back in the day, it was... Nobody gave a shit what you wear, or what you wore. Nobody cared, dude. As long as you were down to have a good time. I felt like back in the day we were more involved as human beings with one another, And today I feel like we're more involved of how can I get richer? How can I get rich by tomorrow? How can I, you got all the streamers, you got all this people streaming, even taking his shit, they're getting views, and people like that. He's like, what the heck? But if it would have gone back in the day, people would be like, what are you guys doing? Fucking, they would have gone to Congress. Congress would want to delete that. Y ahora, it's like when the Ultimate Fire was happening, the government wanted to step in and block that. Y ahora, it's fucking up there. It's one of the top sports entertainment now. It's entertainment now. It's not what it used to be. Like it was raw. Now it's entertainment, But it's just thinking about all that, remembering all that, it just makes you appreciate life more. Y qué bonito recuerdos tener, poder recordar eso, poder recordar a tu tía qué tan excited se ponía cuando se ganaba un disco de los Bookies en la radio, Si eras la llamada número 9, te ganabas un disco o 2 boletos para ir al rodeo o X cosa, and agarraste backstage passes to go see Los Temerarios or something, and it was so beautiful, I think people would be more engaged in the radio stations, too. I remember my mom would be calling, or like my tía would be calling, dedicarle una canción a su novia, a su ex, or hablaban, and like, oh, she broke my heart, me quebró el corazón, dedícale esta canción. And it's just like, ¿y ahora? You know? ¿Qué hacemos? Tiramos puras indirectas en el Instagram and TikTok. It's like, just times changed, but I feel like those days were like the best, in my opinion, right? Going to the mall, looking at the big old carousel in the middle. If you guys remember, there's a big old carousel in the middle at the mall where the Starbucks is at in the middle. Ahí estaba el carrusel, cuando estaba La Fuente, cuando tenían como a little amphitheater going to Sears.
At Juan Avila Photography, we specialize in capturing decisive headshots and portraits that tell your unique story. Serving Salinas, Monterey County, and beyond, our high-quality images reflect your professionalism and authenticity. Whether for corporate teams, executives, or personal branding, let us elevate your image with headshots tailored to your needs. Book your session today.
Good old days. I remember we used to go to this one spot at the mall to take our pictures, You get like 30 pictures for like $20 or $30. Yo me acuerdo que me and my buddies would split it y salíamos todos los güeyes ahí, bien cool guys, And come back in 2 hours y las tenían listas, But that was back in the day. Our senior pictures there. It was just a whole different level, Y ahora pues it's just different. People don't do that no more. People don't go and enjoy themselves at the mall. Now it's like everything's online. It's so convenient, Shit, I remember getting off of work and go grocery shopping. I'll spend 2 hours. Now it's like I go to Instacart. Boom, delivered to my house. Yeah, it's just technology is evolving and we're evolving as technology goes, right? But it's always good to take 2 steps back and remember the good old days. I know there's other people out there older than me, that they live more of the 80s than the 90s, or they prefer the 80s more than the 90s, who knows? But technology started evolving. The cell phones came out, the Nokias. I remember the big old break phone. My dad had one. No, my dad had one que iba en el carro. That shit was weird as fuck. That you had a phone in the car. I remember getting in my dad's car and my dad's truck and miré el teléfono y I was like, ¿esto qué? What's the teléfono? And he'd literally be on the phone talking to my mom. Like, hey, voy a la tienda, ¿qué quieres? Like, what? Whoa. And then, boom, salió ese break, un Motorola así. La abrías and it was like, it was like this big, Te cubría de aquí acá con la antena para acá. I remember que cuando salieron los case protectors, back then there was like a leather protector. I remember going to La Pulga, dude, my dad would be walking with a big old brick on his pocket, being cool guy, my dad. And it's just like, wow. And then, boom, the Nokias came out. Smaller phone, chiquito. Who remembers the Snake game? Shit, I'll be playing that shit for days, the Snake game. The Nokia came up, and then that was a really good phone. And then phones started evolving, But before the phone, internet, internet. When internet started evolving, that was like a big whoa. I remember getting those little CD samples on the mail from AOL, and then you put it in there, the CD, and does this crazy noise, and then you connect, and you have your own AOL email. That's a pedo, dude. It's like, whoa, I could watch porn here, I don't know how many viruses I got on my mom's computer. I know I was not the only one, but it's just like, whoa, Internet started evolving a lot, as to how to be patient, how to learn the computers, how face-to-face conversations, back then was a big thing, no Zooms, nothing, go meet up at a coffee shop, meet, but it's just, back then it was a whole different league, I felt like I missed that, I missed that, I miss that time. I miss it because now I feel like people live in a fast-paced world where everybody's on the go, go, go. We gotta do this, we gotta do that, we gotta do this, and we tend to rely more on technology that has been so easy for us. Like again, going back, I'm so busy, I had time to go grocery shopping. Instacart, boom, there it is, right? So back then, I feel like we had more time to spend as a family. Sit down and eat, talk about how was your day, how did you do at school, Junior, or like, hey, Junior se portó mal o sacó una F, and then, you know what I mean? So stuff like that. Este, it's just growing up, the freedom that you had, being able to like go to your friend's house, tocar, hey, puedes salir, Juan. Sí, 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 y boom. Y regresas a las 2 horas, nomás 2 horas. Y tú ni tenías reloj y te ibas a jugar. How do you know it was 2 hours? I have no idea, but you got home in those 2 hours. And that's something so beautiful, Now you tell your daughter or your son, hey, get home at midnight and fucking show up at 3 in the morning. I used to do it. uh, the movies back then, if you look at 80s movies or 90s movies, y si las miras ahora, you're like, no manches, like the effects son bien chafas, But back then, we didn't even pay attention to that. We were like, oh, fuck, a badass movie, Entertainment again, it was different. Fashion, the culture was different. We experienced a lot of things that we're experiencing now as far as culture-wise. Um, but I feel like that era taught me a lot. It taught me to be more different now than what the new generation is. It taught me a lot of values. It taught me, to appreciate life more. Because ahora la gente de ahora, pues como que se mira que les vale madre. And there's nothing wrong with it. But at the end of the day, I feel like, ¿qué soy? Gen Zen or ¿eh? 83. Millennial. Yo diciendo Gen Z. Okay, I'm a millennial, so I feel like los millennials tuvieron la oportunidad de vivir la vida un poquito mejor, and I feel que por eso a lot of us are upset of how life has turned out, or how the world is evolving. And who knows, but at least I know that we had a good time, growing up. I feel like for me, I had a good time. I mean, again, Salinas back in the day, it was great, To me, Salinas always been my home. It's always going to be my home. I know a lot of people have this stigma of 831 of Salinas. I know a lot of people moved away from Salinas because they felt they were like in a hole. They were like in somewhere like they didn't belong. But, Salinas is beautiful. Salinas is a rich culture, agriculture place. And, our raza is here. And we're not closed-minded. We're just people that love life, and at the end of the day, it's like, if you're that person that wants to move out and you want to better yourself, by all means, go for it. If you're that person that, you want to buy your own home and unfortunately you can't buy it here because it's too expensive, I get it. I get it. There's a lot of people that move out of state for the goal of buying a home because they can't afford it here. They don't do it because they want to. They do it because they're doing it for their family. So they're sacrificing themselves to give their kids a better opportunity as far as giving them a home, There's other people that are making good money here in Salinas, and they are privileged that they get to pick up their stuff, their belongings, and move to another state. Not because they have to, it's because, I love California, but I want to go, Texas, let's go try out Texas. They're making good money here, over 6 figures. And they want to move to Texas. There's nothing wrong with that. That's being blessed. That's called being blessed and privilege. Privilege/blessed because you're able to do that. You're not doing it out of necessity. No lo estás haciendo necesidad. Lo estás haciendo porque pues, puedes. Y mucha gente lo hace por necesidad. A lot of people do it out of necessity. There you go, necessity. They move out because they do it out of necessity. A lot of people do it because they're have the opportunity to do it. They're blessed, and it's a privilege for them to do it. So don't get that twisted, guys. So with that being said, guys, this is just a hype of a next episode that I'm planning, taking the time machine to the 80s and 90s. I'm going to have 2 guests for that episode. I just wanted to get you guys' input, see if anything you guys have in mind that you guys want to talk about or something that you guys remember. They're like, oh, I remember going to this place that I never went to. Feel free to share it on the comments or send me a DM. Tell me which music was your favorite one, from the 80s to the 90s? ¿Qué grupo te gustaba, either Spanish or English? You know, what school did you went to? What area did you live at? What was it that you guys did as childs, you know, growing up? How was your first experience dealing with internet? You know, how was your first experience going to the movies with your friends? You know, I don't know. You know, do you still have some movies in your back in your garage que se te olvidó entregar a Blockbuster, you know? I don't know. I was one of them, you know? Blood in, Blood Out. I never returned that fucking movie. That was one of my best movies. But yeah, you know, and I just hope that some of you guys connect on this episode and it just brings you guys a little bit of laughter, a little bit of emotion, reminiscing those good old days from the 80s and 90s. And stay tuned for the next one, because the next one we are definitely going to take the time machine back to the 80s and 90s. We're going to go more in detail. And we're just going to reminisce it for real this time. But I just wanted to, you know, get you guys hyped up and again, get some feedback from you guys. Is there anything you guys want me to touch, you know, on the next episode? Feel free to reach out, send me a DM. But with that being said, guys, that's it for today's episode. Stay blessed. To the next one. Peace.